Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to our Healing Corporate Trauma series. Just me today, Laura, here with Karen, Hanlon Kinsberg. Karen's got a very interesting story. I was about to say fantastic. You'll realize why I changed my words in a couple of minutes. She's a business assistant at Alberta World Cup and a coach at CrossFit Canmore. And she was in engineering for over 20 years. We actually connected on LinkedIn a couple of months ago now after one of our other Healing Corporate Trauma interviews was posted. And I'm just really grateful for you, Karen, for being here and for sharing your story today. Welcome.
Thank you, Laura. No, really grateful for this opportunity and platform to share a bit my story and experiences, both in and out of engineering. It's been a real shift in the last 6 months or so since I quit my engineering job and pivoted more into this sort of health and wellness and sport arena. My engineering history goes back almost to, I'd say, junior high, high school, where I knew I come from a family of engineers. My brother, my father, I'm married to an engineer. It's like here, Calgary, Alberta, it's engineering heartland. So there was never really a question, since I did well in math and sciences. That was a great way to get a professional degree within, super efficient to get yourself out into industry. And it just seemed to kind of click for me.
Yeah.
And never really kind of questioned as to whether it was the right thing. It was partly, there's an element of sort of family destiny and my legacy within pieces, because even the fact that the niche I ended up in eventually is actually my father's technology, the same business area. So there's a lot of layers of this is who I was meant to be. I had a conference one time where someone introduced themselves as my engineering grandfather, because he worked in a lab where that's actually how my parents met, was in a sulfur lab when they were chemists, and then my dad went on to engineering. So it's so intertwined when people talk about, oh, we're like a family here. Well, literally that was so many aspects of my engineering career were people that I grew up with and were at my dinner table when I was a kid growing up overseas. And so that way it influenced my identity as a person. It was never a question of I do engineering. No, I am an engineer. And so then to come through so many years and like we talked about, so the whole phrase of corporate trauma, and just intertwined with gender issues within engineering, of being, so often, even, to the time where I quit last year, how many times I would still sit in meetings and be the only woman in 2021, still being the only, and what that feels like, and to try to somehow express that to colleagues as to what that feels like. And we talked about it, death by 1,000 cuts, where it's not any one particular issue or item that really traumatizes you. It's all those microaggressions that build up over time that just suck the life out of that profession and that career. And for me, I struggled so long because it was this question, both, well, this is who I am, and this is the only thing I know, and this is the only thing I can do, and I'm good at it. So why am I struggling so much? And having gone through all kinds of different experiences between burnout and depression, and trying an overseas assignment, moving into a different role, and just nothing really clicking for me, until finally kind of having the courage to try some additional training outside of engineering and to pursue, and so I've been CrossFitting for 11 and a half years now. And it truly has changed my life, both as far, physically, mentally, emotionally. And it was going through a training course where I came out of that and went, huh, this makes me feel good about myself. And I can learn how to do other things. And it's not just, engineering is not the only way. And yeah, okay, I'm walking away from hugely lucrative profession when things are going well in engineering, like in oil and gas, and seeing the writing on the wall of like, well, this isn't going to last forever. But having some confidence in myself again, that I have other skills and I can separate my identity and express myself and connect with people in a space outside of that. And that was like earth-shattering. And then in sharp contrast was looking around at my engineering team through last summer when Canada was going through, truth and reconciliation issues. And I'm like, this is feeling very, important to me, but no one's talking about this. Like, why is there so much silence on this hugely important social issue? And this dissonance then kind of saying, well, this is not my people. This is not the circle where I feel authentic, safe, seen. So I need to change this.
It's just so telling, and thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably. I know that your story will be resonating with a lot of people already, and it resonates with me. I mean, my parallel was yoga teacher training, and that kind of creating this shift for me that was, I feel strong, I can create, I can lead, I can teach, and I can do it in a way that really honors who I am and doesn't require me to conform into someone else. And for you, just the identity piece of having your family and your legacy tied up in this identity of engineering, I'm sure that's got to be heartbreaking that the industry, some of your experiences in the industry that required you to make that change. That's like, it is leaving a family.
Yeah. No, I mean, pieces, right? Like, finally getting pregnant and telling my boss and being told, oh, I thought you were on the management track.
Wow.
And just like, okay then. And other ones of my husband and I went on an assignment to a construction site together, and we only got one living out allowance because we were married. We were both employees of the company. And if we were not married, that would have been 2 separate assignment allowances. But oh no, sorry, this is how we run things when you're married. So the financial sacrifices that we had to make along the way.
Which has a big impact down the line. So, and you talked about some of these big things that happen, and also some of the really small ones too. Like for me, it was, emails addressed to gents or being called something that wasn't my name. I'm sure you've got a few of those.
Dear sir, how many times when I was a business development manager and we were working with international clients and the dear sir, and the guys are like, and fighting how long I fought over the term man hours. Like, so help me God. Like, I'm like, you're getting distracted, dear. Can you just like focus on the important issues? They're just words. Mm-hmm. And now going, words matter. And that's what I love about how the conversations are changing on LinkedIn and so many things between Black lives and all the DE&I work, and saying it really, like, what we say is huge. Mm-hmm. And how we include people and how the words can truly make or break people's feeling of being seen and heard within spaces. And it took and it was literally until 2020 that Worley globally goes, it's work hours, people. Yeah. Thank you, but holy crap, why did it take until 2020? And so that finally, pieces of validation, like, yay. But still, people like, oh, I don't get it. What's the big deal? Why is gender equity such a big, why do women on boards? And why da-da-da-da? I'm just like,
Yeah,
And
there's no
so
cages
again,
anymore. You know, you've got a job, you're in the workplace, you can be whatever you want to be. So, you know, what are you complaining about? And there's
yeah,
still companies, you know, very like even further behind who are using, yeah, man hours, manpower. And that's sort of, you know, it seems insignificant in isolation, you know, like reading one word that says manpower. But when you hear manpower, man hours, dear sirs,
yeah.
over
When the
and over and over
default is
again.
always male,
Yeah. It's these
it's
incremental
again those
nudges.
microaggressions, right?
It's
Yeah,
saying you don't belong here,
yeah,
saying this is not for you.
you're the other. And it really, so for me, finally kind of this awareness of how triggering in some respects, like going back to my childhood, even that
Yeah.
always feeling like the outsider. And I had it everything from like being one of the few Canadian kids in an American school overseas and like, okay, when I come to Canada, then I'll be with my people and I won't be the outsider anymore. And coming like, no, 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 no. You are not like any of us because you don't have the same cultural experiences. So you're still an outsider. You think school is cool. You're trying hard for good grades. So there, like the trauma continues of being, well, I'm not part of the inner circle and go through, you know, engineering and being one of the few women. And again, just like push to the outside. Well, what's the problem? Like you have a seat at the table. What more do you want? And just like, and feeling so paralyzed in how to even explain to people, like to male colleagues, what is the issue and how it just builds and builds and builds over time.
So
But
difficult to convey. It's so difficult to convey, and it's such a valid experience, and one so many of us have gone through. And it hurts. It is that drip, drip, drip draining of your energy, of your life force, of your joy for engineering, you know, this
yeah,
energy around it. Uh, you know, that's very real. And it's something that's often associated with events that kind of negative events that turn into trauma and land in our bodies as trauma, because
yeah,
you feel much more backed into a corner almost because you don't notice.
yeah. Well, and that's that whole, like, I think, I mean, there's even a great meme, right? Of like a white male at a start line to run a race. And then there's a woman of color standing next to him and her path littered with landmines and obstacles and whatever else to try to get. And I'm like, and that's exactly it. Like
Yeah.
you think, well, what's the big deal? How hard is it to navigate this world? What's your problem? And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, you can't see the things I have to get through, even just to walk in the front door of the office in the morning.
Yeah.
And that was even like talking to another friend of mine who's gone through, you know, really difficult divorce and through the court systems and all that trauma associated with trying to deal with, you know, a terrible ex. And that's what she has to go through just to get, you know, that's what happens in her day even before she shows up. And so when someone asks something really unreasonable and you snap because your cup was already filled, you had 1,000 straws on your back already, and somebody just puts one more thing on there and you're like, I'm out, I'm done, and you snap. And then people are like, well, why are you freaking out? Like I just
Why are you getting
asked this little
emotional?
thing. Why are you so emotional? Why are you so triggered? And it's just like, because you have no concept of everything that I have had to get through just to stand in front of you today.
And I love that there's more conversations happening around inclusion, like proactive inclusion, and also empathy and empathetic leadership, and just having this understanding that you never know where people are coming from. And
Yeah,
we are all, you know, flawed humans with a myriad of experiences that have created these, you know, flawed personalities that we are. So even, you know, even from our side, kind of looking at people who have not changed, don't really want to change, you know, there's a personality there as well that is perhaps a little bit scared that change is happening very quickly, and they might feel excluded by that change too.
and you know, again, as a white person. So I fully admit, like, you know, by the lottery of birth, the language, you know, speaking English, all the different pieces of privilege that I have had in my life, like hugely grateful, and a fraction of some of the challenges that other people have gone through to get where they are in life. And so not looking for sympathy or, you know, pity points or whatever, but to just make space to acknowledge that everybody's got a different journey, to the point where, like, having performance reviews that go, Karen really needs to work on her mental resiliency. And this coming out of like depression and, you know, dealing with anxiety, a lifetime of anxiety issues and burnout, and going, you don't know, you have no clue what I've had to go through in terms of mental resilience just to get to here today. Like, excuse me? Like, and those are the things, like, we just kind of shake our heads where it's so easy to pass judgment and say, well, Karen, you can't let them like push your buttons like they do. And it's just like, I'm exhausted. I don't have the capacity anymore, and it's not worth it, right? And like, that was the awesome bit about COVID, was turn it around, and everything I've been fighting for, being able to work from home more and make space and flexibility. And now the whole world finally goes, huh, that actually works, as opposed to having to be the army of one going, this is, you know, it's possible. I can still be a contributing member of this team and not have to be sitting in your office 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And that validation piece, huge, right?
It works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that you would have liked to have seen during your career. I'm wondering about some other things that you were asking for or looking for, or, you know, for the companies who are watching, what are ways that companies can support women in engineering? What would you have wanted to have happened? I think it's definitely, it's that motherhood penalty that we suffer. That was a massive issue for me as a senior technical. I finally, it clicked for me as I was leaving, was that I was the first senior woman as a mother at that technical level, and how that impeded or changed the opportunities that were available to me as far as technical training, being able to go out into the field and have the same learning opportunities that my male colleagues did. And projects that I worked on before my kids were born, that because then I had little ones at home, I couldn't go sit in the middle of Kazakhstan for 6 months, or Turkmenistan, and sit there at a construction site and see things, see the work, the project I had done in the office come to fruition in the field, because it just didn't work. Like, I couldn't make that sacrifice to my family. And that made a massive impact on my confidence level within the business. And the company didn't, like, I wasn't in the box. I wasn't the Don Draper ideal male employee. And they didn't know what to do with me. They didn't see it even as being an issue. And it partly was my, you know, insecurities, and go, well, I'm not like the other ones. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I haven't seen. And so that whole insecurity on my part. But then when I was raising it as part of my exit interview, well, Karen, it's just, you know, we can't fight nature, and that's just how, you know, things go. And it turned into this sort of like, well, women can be the fire tenders and at home, you know, keeping the home fires burning in the office, and the men can be the hunter gatherers going out into the field. And I go, that's bullshit, because I see our clients who are able to have women in the field. Oh, well, that's because they're in one location. And again, it's just like, you know, they come up with all these excuses. It's absolute bullshit. And yeah, you know, there's advancements in innovation, there's advancements in technology, in you know, remote working, virtual working, that many people are using, not just mothers who have to be at home, you know, in a with different demands on their lives. We're using more robotics and automation to keep people safe, so that we don't have to be close up to the work. People who are caring for parents or relatives or family members who aren't mothers could use this work. And also, people who, you know, if you start finding the solution to this, then you're able to hire more people who are not necessarily able-bodied and who can, you know, do field work, who can get involved in, you know, that frontline technical work and advance through the company. Like, you're creating opportunities for so many more people than mothers by opening up and investing and committing to making this sort of technical work more available.
And again, it's that trying to fit, like, if you don't fit in the box, being made to feel that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, you're subpar, everyone else has to make special exceptions for you. And even just that whole not feeling confident myself to speak up. I mean, wonderful example. I don't know if I told you about it before, it was my son's first day of kindergarten. And I, because of a business trip, had to leave, fly out the afternoon. I wasn't able to walk him home from kindergarten. My husband had to do it. We walked him there, but then I had to sacrifice that milestone moment in my child's life. And I show up at site the next morning to meet a client who's then half an hour late, rushes in going, "Oh, I'm sorry. I had to take my daughter to kindergarten this morning." And I was just like, are you kidding me right now? I'm the idiot. I'm the idiot because I didn't fight for my family, my values. And the client is always right. We got to, like, you know, fit into the box because that's the expectation. And I'm not allowed to speak my truth and stand up for myself as a mother because I'm just lucky enough to be here in the first place as a woman in this environment. So I got to just toe the line and shut up and suck it up.
And I would say that, you know, the experience in the workplace also contributes to that reduction in confidence and the reduction in the ability to speak up too. You know, there are people out there who, you know, different people, different personalities, and some people do find it much easier to establish what their values are, assert their boundaries, ask for what they want. And it's just an important thing to recognize that the more you're experiencing these paper cut style microaggressions, the less you are standing in your power, the less you're feeling like you, the less confidence you have, and the less ability you have to speak up for yourself, because it does just sort of it chips away at your strength and your character. So
and then you just shut down. I mean, and that was, I mean, has been my tendency, coping mechanism, everything from wanting to be the pleaser. I was the oldest, always trying to be the good girl, follow the rules, do what I'm told. And so again, like, don't want to make any waves. And so you just implode in on yourself and you let the bad behavior go on unchecked. You don't have the confidence to speak up on your own because there's no allies in the room who are going to stand next to you and say and call out when someone is being ridiculous. And then it propagates. And then if you do, and then it's also, as a woman, the double standard of, if you stand up, you're being unreasonable. You're focusing on, this is a distraction. Words are just, you know, unimportant. This isn't the real focus of, this isn't why we're here. Just focus on the technical stuff. Don't get distracted by those personal politics. Don't let them push your buttons, and all that coaching of how I need to modify myself to fit within a broken system. You raise it must be nice to work part-time kind of thing. I'm like, it's the only way it's going to work between my family and this is, like, I can't do 40 hours and maintain my sanity. Sorry. I didn't see it as a privilege. I saw it as a necessity.
You have commitments, and you made an assessment over how you were able to meet those commitments. I want to skip back for just a second though, because you said something really important, and I want to highlight a very practical thing that people can do in the workplace. And this is directed at white men or members of a dominant group. If there is language, actions, behaviors being used against someone of a minority group, it is on you to be an ally and to say something, because it is so much harder for a person of a minority to step up. And it's also much less impactful, because, you know, if I'm standing up in a meeting and I'm saying, please don't call me honey, please call me Laura, I get snickers, you know, and laughs, and, oh, you know, she's just joking around, she's just overreacting. If a white male, and especially if it's a person of leadership or a person of power in an organization, says, please call her Laura, that is landing. That's landing.
Yeah.
So
no, and that's...
talk a little bit about, you know, the tides have changed for you. What started this change in perspective for you in engineering? So it sounds like, you know, you started to realize some things that you needed. You asked for reduced hours to be able to meet those things. And, you know, your priorities started to shift out of people pleasing into, you know, looking after yourself. Talk us through that.
So I think, I mean, it's been, I mean, as far back as about 2016, when I started looking around and going, this isn't my path, and this isn't resonating for me anymore, and switched into a different role. We moved our whole family overseas for 2 years. It nearly broke me emotionally and mentally. Coming back home, realizing, you know, Canmore is my place, that's my people, this is what I need. And then reconnecting as far as the whole concept of skills, and going through, like, you know, like I said, with the CrossFit training and stepping up in some coaching responsibilities, and going, wow, this really, because I was always feeling, you know, as a networker, that's what resonated more for me within engineering than it was even the technical. Like, you know, at one point, like, so help me God, if I hear one more like equation for conversion and, you know, activity rates, my head's gonna explode. This is not me. I don't live for this stuff anymore. I don't know if I ever did, but I don't now. Mm-hmm. But when I can connect a person, when I can like put two people together who are then able to, you know, when I can help someone be better or find what they're looking for, then I feel alive and connected, and purpose resonates within me. And so then that feedback, when getting into a coaching situation and really helping people on a day-to-day basis feel better about themselves, do something positive with their lives, it's like, yeah, okay, this is a space, and where as a woman, I can be my whole self, because our strength, our skills, we're seen as complete. We're not less than, we're not the other. We are on an equal footing with the men in the group, and we can all respect each other. And all those pieces kind of falling into place. And then my academy work with the World Cup Society, again, just sort of landed out of nowhere, that there was a job posting, and I looked at it and went, well, okay, like, and even in like the very first interview, like, so how do you feel about DE&I, Karen? I'm like, oh my God, we really care about Indigenous rights. We care about gender equality. We care about making sure that like inclusion in sport. I'm like, all the things that I've been like thinking about and researching and feeling excited about for the last however many, you know, months and probably years, and happens in the first 30-minute conversation. Hello.
Amazing.
This is a place, right? Where, yeah, like it just aligns together, and I feel seen, part of a team that cares about me. So many different, you know, the sharp contrast between past leadership experiences and my current leadership, where just the contributions I make are seen and valued and celebrated in ways that I never felt before. And it's like, okay, so this means I'm on the right path. Even if, again, like, it's not about the money, financially making, some sacrifices, but also through the, virtues of my family situation and husband being in, a more secure spot, him having found, his passion and dream job. Now I can have, some opportunity to explore, where before it was never like, there were 7 years there where I was the sole income earner and he was at home with the kids. And so again, that like layer of pressure, and I understand who, that frustration, but you financially can't walk away from the trauma is the other one when you're trapped, because there's bills to be paid, children to feed. Like, so I was lucky that those pieces aligned and I could make choices.
It's a really important point, because there are plenty of people out there who are not in a position to leave or move, definitely leave, potentially move. And it is, there's things we can all do to protect ourselves in an environment where we can't leave. There's rights to be aware of. There's resources, company resources to tap into. But if and when you can get some space from the environment that has traumatized you, for me, that is just so transformational and just catalyzes a healing journey. And whether or not a person goes back, with an increased sense of self and boundaries and values, I've seen that happen too. But it sounds like you've landed in a place that you are really thriving and really loving your work. Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now.
Well, it's 2 part-time positions. So it's days is with the ski team work. And so that's awesome, because as far as, for me as a kid, the 1988 Calgary Winter Olympics were hugely impactful, because that was my town on this global scale, on the global stage, and the whole world looking at Calgary. And I'm like, that's me, that's my people. And so that, made lasting impressions. And so now here I sit, today that's where I'm at, is up at the Canmore Nordic Center, which was the site for the cross-country skiing events for the 88 Olympics. And so today I work with, a team of athletes and a society that springs from that Olympic legacy. Wow. And so we have high performance. We had 3 women on our team who were at Beijing. So these connections and continuity of that Olympic legacy, just I'm in awe that this is where I get to play, and this is where I get to work and be involved with. And as I was saying, we just wrapped up the Masters World Cup 2 weeks ago, and seeing, the cutest 80-year-old, this couple of 80-year-olds who drove up from Seattle, Washington to come and race, and they're both standing on the podiums getting their medals for being out there and skiing. I'm like, if I am still strapping on skis when I'm in my mid-80s, that will be awesome. Like, I will have had a good life if I can aspire to what these people. So this whole concept of cross-country skiing and that health and wellness and that longevity that it's promoting. So to be involved directly with something like that, and seeing so much positive energy coming off these athletes who traveled around the world to come to our little piece of the mountains, it's incredible. And the whole idea that the energy I input into this experience and into this work compounds and grows. And I don't feel exhausted and drained and depleted by those experiences.
Love that.
As opposed to so many countless past projects where it's just like you put your heart and soul, make all these sacrifices, and the thing goes on the shelf, and nobody says boo or thank you or whatever. Just like they're there, on to the next thing.
I've been there.
Just like,
well, I'm so happy to hear about this, rewarding, purposeful, full circle work, and sounds like a new definition of success as well, like seeing that that couple collect some awards for cross-country skiing. I would say one more question, and just if, if someone's watching and they really resonate with your story and they're in the same position that you were in, what's a piece of advice or a couple pieces of advice that you would give to someone in those shoes?
It's just to not be afraid of the unknown. Like I walked away from that engineering job without having something else, and it blew people's minds. They're like, what? How? What? Even my own mother was just like, I need to sit down. Like, what do you mean you've quit your job? Like,
Wow.
the world is collapsing around me. I'm like, because life is too short. And within the space, like literally within a month, then I started the work with the academy. Yeah. And so that whole having faith in myself, but being able to step into the unknown and trusting that I will figure that opportunities will present themselves, because I'm making myself open to new opportunities and chances, and to see that my skill, that I can learn new things, and it's not fixed, it's not finite, that the power and the energy, and that's even the D&I concept, right? Like, I'm not trying to take power away from white male leaders. It's power with, like, this is not a finite resource. We can share, we can walk together, we can learn from each other, and it grows when we're open.
Absolutely. It's so true, Karen, and people who've worked for me know that I say this a lot. It is amazing what opens up for you when you take small steps to center yourself. When you choose yourself, when you have faith in yourself, when you back yourself, whether you believe it's, universal or law of attraction, or just, some sort of placebo effect for your body, you're telling yourself that you can do it, and things open up. It does. Yeah. It happens. It just happens. And that's one piece of advice actually I got when I left, and I had some ideas, but nothing firm lined up. And I had a friend said to me, my coach at the time said, you've just got to back yourself. And it's as simple as that. And decisions can be reversed if necessary. Things can change. And yeah, it's just, don't be afraid. Thank you.
There's nothing set in concrete, right? And I say it to my athletes all the time, like, adaptation, the key to success. Like, if you don't keep readjusting for how the conditions are changing, like, don't be afraid to admit that what you chose before might have been wrong. And that's okay. And that's even, the whole failure mindset that I had grown up with as a kid, that the worst possible thing you could do was to make a mistake. And that how limiting that belief is. And it traps us in those boxes. And then I turn and I look at my beautiful story of my daughter, who I took to her she had this 4 weeks of tri-biathlon. And so one of the sessions, I'm out there standing next to the range. She stands up and she's like, woohoo! I'm like, what? I have a new course record. I'm like, what? 5 reds, which means she didn't hit a single target. And she was just like celebrating. I'm like, holy crap, that was never me as a kid, right? Like, the way she can just be like, the joy in the moment of what she's doing, and failure is not the worst case scenario.
Yes, thank you for that. I love that. She's an inspiration. Celebrate your failures, learn from them, move on, and yeah, don't be afraid to center yourself and back yourself. Good stuff. Any final messages, Karen?
It's again, like, taking it back to my kids was the fact that they saw it all, especially with COVID, working from home. They saw the stress, they saw the trauma, and then they saw the pivot, and they were so proud. And the feedback they would even give to my husband of like, Mom is happy. She's really, and so that's the example. That's what we're doing it for. That's the legacy piece for me, is to model to my own kids that you have that power. you can make the change as a person.
Incredible. What a fantastic message to end on, Karen. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. I'm sorry that it's happened to you. I'm so happy that you're in this place now, and here is hoping that we can inspire some people to center themselves and choose something better.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.